Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tapping In Part 4. I hope you all had an okay weekend, maybe sorting out all your stuff that you needed to sort out in your house, getting some gardening done, getting some sun and some fresh air. It's definitely tough, but we'll all get through it together. Anyway, today is all about how to tap in as a business owner. What you can do, what you can think about to change some things within your business so that it's more accessible for people with disability and impairment. So, I welcome you today. First up, we'll just do an acknowledgement of country. 30 Foot Drop acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters, and the community. We pay our respects to the Indigenous people, their cultures, beliefs to both elders past and present. 30 Foot Drop funding. 30 Foot Drop would like to acknowledge the Department of Communities Disability Services for funding this and many other initiatives. Without their support, such projects such as Two Wise Monkeys wouldn't see the light of day, and we'd be much more poorer for it as a community. This workshop is part of a Realities and Advantages of an Access and Inclusion grant awarded to 30 Foot Drop as part of the Information, Linkages and Capacity Building Grant for 2018 and 2019. So, housekeeping for today. Unfortunately, we do not have all of the resources to be able to monitor all of our live stream platforms. So if you do have any questions, there's a link under this video, which is the link 30 Foot Drop, www.30footdrop.com.au/live. Hit the live box on the website and then you can chat with me if you like. If you have any questions along the way, that's totally fine. We'll be covering a lot of information in a short period of time. So we ask we ask attendees to minimize any distractions that you might have. I know that is pretty hard for us nowadays with the children at home and other things going on. But anyway, do what you can. Grab a cup of coffee, grab a pen and paper or an iPad to take notes, because this one today is jammed with a lot of information. So let's get into it. Make sure that 30 Foot Drop is also tagged in anything that you share of ours. We'd love to be involved, and we really would love to get our message out there more. And if you know anyone that may benefit from these webinars, please share our sites, share our pages. There's so many people out there that can benefit from these, and so many people out there that just have no idea that something like this exists. We'll be recording the session. We record every session. So if you need to review it later on, once I've hit the end button, you can rewind it and go over anything else. As well, all of the research and findings on the webinars are all on our digital resource library on the website. So if you wanted to look deeper into something that I've spoken about, you can head over to our website, 30 Foot Drop website, and look into those things into more detail. Or feel free to message us. Okay, so that is the housekeeping. And I am one of your wise monkeys. There are two wise monkeys, Ben and I. I'm Lisa. We run the workshops together, and we both have different kinds of impairments or disabilities. So Ben is see no evil. He is working from home at the moment, trying to keep as isolated as he can. So I'm currently taking all of the webinars until this is all over. Ben is the director of 30 Foot Drop and Two Wise Monkeys, and his message is just for people to listen and make changes, because after his accident, which put him in a wheelchair, he realised at the age of 22 that there wasn't a lot for people with disability, and through that disappointment he wanted to create change, and that is why we are here today. And I am Hear No Evil. So Just by looking at me, you probably can't tell what I may suffer from. Through me, you will realise that you hear no evil about impairment. My story is definitely a more hidden one. At the age of 8, I was diagnosed with mild dyslexia. Teachers used to hit me on the head, read out my low marks in front of all my classmates, and yell at me. Why don't you understand what's wrong with you? Making me feel completely dumb and unworthy, which is just awful, and teachers would not get away with that today. But 30 years ago, it was like that for me. But despite those challenges growing up in school, I was so determined to prove all those teachers wrong and those people that didn't believe in me. I passed school, I did really well at school, I found my passion in art and photography. I was 13 when I realised that passion, and once I found that passion, I was off. It didn't matter that I wasn't this amazing mathematician or this amazing speller. I followed art. It took me all around the world. I've worked in many galleries all around the world. I've done picture framing for 12 years, working with museum grade artworks in museums. I've done so much with it, and I'm so glad that was my passion, because it's something I will always have and always love, and I can still paint when I'm 90 years old. Anyway, at the present moment, I'm still painting when I can. I have multiple diplomas in the arts field, one in counselling because I love helping people in tough times, and I also have my own photography business, which is Lisa Hall Creative, if you wanted to check it out. Okay, so isn't there meant to be 3 wise monkeys? Who is the third wise monkey? You guys can take a little guess. Well, yes, the third monkey is you. The aim of today's workshop is to turn you into that wise monkey. You'll begin on a journey of realising that, impairment or not, we are all human and deserve to be acknowledged and treated in the same way as everyone else in the community. Such an important message. Okay, let's go over to outline and method. So how are we going to get you started on the path of a wise monkey? Well, there's a lot to learn about people with impairment and how you can increase your business by attracting them. We'll be looking at 3 areas of need that most businesses can improve and use to tap into this market. These are accessibility, universal design, and diverse marketing. After covering all of the good stuff, we will finish with an open forum where you can ask questions. I turn the video off and people send in questions, and then we open it up and have an open chat session. So, how are we going to cover all this? What will our teaching method be? The answer is fun and open discussions. No questions are off limits. You'll notice that there's very little written content on the slides, and that is so that we can all interact with each other as much as possible. We also do live workshops, so that also applies to the live workshops, so that people can ask questions and we can chat about different things. But on the webinars, you can chat through the chat box. And the only way that we can make changes is by being open and honest. If we have an issue due to our disability or our impairment and we don't speak about it, then changes aren't going to be made. So being open and honest about it with the right people, hopefully these changes can get made, and that's what we're trying to do. Okay, next up I will just be going over some terminology review. First is the difference between disability and impairment. To reduce confusion and ensure understanding, I want to review some terminology that we use in our sessions. First up, difference between disability and impairment. An impairment is an injury, illness, or congenital condition that causes or is likely to cause a loss of difference of physiological and psychological function. In short, an impairment is your medical diagnosis. So my medical diagnosis is mild dyslexia. A disability, on the other hand, is the loss or limitation of opportunities to take part in society on an equal level to others due to social and environmental barriers. It is, as the word implies, something that makes you unable to access or participate in something. So if you out there own a cafe and the only way up to the cafe is through stairs or it's a hill, then someone in a wheelchair is unable to access your cafe. So something to think about if you have stairs or your cafe is on a hill. So my example for this, which makes me unable to access, would be too much wording, complex information, or sometimes stylized script can make it hard for people with dyslexia or a learning disorder, which means that it's hard for us to get the right information that we need to use your service. This is especially important information to remember because some impairments, like mine, are hidden. So potentially you have lost business by not you've lost this business to these people that aren't understanding your services. So if you're feeling like, oh, hang on, yes, someone might not have understood that certain wording you've used on your website, then all you need to do is go and change it and make it simple. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone, the differences between those. The next is the difference between access and inclusion. And lots of people think that this is the same thing. Access refers to the removal or reduction of barriers, physical and attitudinal, to participate in the activities and functions of a community. At its core, access focuses a lot on the physical world around us and is easily assessed by a checklist. Inclusion is more of a psychological state of being and is a process hereby every person, irrespective of their age, disability, gender, religion, sexual preference or nationality, who wishes to, can participate fully in all aspects of activity or service in the same way as every other member in the community. So I'm hoping that makes sense to you guys. And it's crazy how often people get those things mixed up or they actually don't really even know what they mean. So important messages, and please share them with people. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How to tap into the market. As mentioned in the overview, there are 3 strategies that businesses can use to tap into the market. These are accessibility, universal design, and marketing. And they can be used individually, but it's best to use them concurrently. So let's go over these. What do you think of when someone asks you or talks about accessibility? You think of wheelchair ramps, you think of Acrod bays, you think of accessible toilets, and those are all really great things to think of. But that's just the physical accessibility. There are so many other ways businesses can be more accessible. So let's have a look at this and go over things you might want to look at yourself within your business, making your business more accessible for your customers too. Okay, information. Make sure that your information is accessible. It's important not to make assumptions about how people can receive or communicate information. The best approach is to make important information available to customers in a variety of formats, which I will now go over some of the examples of formats that you can use. Speaking directly on the phone to a person, and in the case of someone that is deaf or has a hearing impairment, through the telephone typewriter service, which is National Relay Service. So for those of you that don't know what that is, this is when a person types a message, the person with a hearing impairment types a message to the National Relay Service. They then pick it up at the other end, they convert that message and ring the person who the deaf person is trying to communicate with. So they ring that other person, get the answer from the person, comes back to the National Relay, and then it's then typed back to the deaf person. So it's amazing that they can communicate through that, and lots of people didn't know about that. Very, very important thing to know, especially if you get a phone call and there's a pause and then it's the relay service. Okay. Also, you need to include hard copies in written format, which also include size 18 fonts. because you need to be aware that not everyone's going to be able to read your certain information relating to your services. So have that option there where the wording is big enough for people that have vision impairments. Also have electronic formats available by email, websites and chat services. Also on a computer disk or USB, or make an audio recording. Some businesses could also think about maybe installing an audio loop system in your public shop fronts to assist people with hearing aids, and maybe possibly provide an Auslan interpreter or Braille as an option on request if necessary. Okay. Now we'll go over a few tips for maintaining an accessible premises. An accessible designed premises is great, but if it's not maintained, it can be disastrous, and in some cases dangerous. Here are some issues to be aware of. Do not lock accessible bathrooms or lifts while they are in use by members of the public. Ensure accessible bathrooms can be reached via a continuous path of travel. If you don't make sure your business is an inclusive practice, then people with a disability or impairment will feel unwanted at your business when the toilets are locked. There'd be nothing worse than turning up somewhere in a wheelchair or with a mobility issue, going to use the accessible toilet and it being locked. That's just totally wrong. So think about that. Make sure they are always open. And do not use accessible bathrooms or change rooms as storage areas. Avoid constructing temporary displays or stacking goods in a manner which obstruct the aisles of your shop, for example. Make sure there is a continuous accessible path of travel in and around your workplace or service. Make sure that counter heights and lift buttons, EFTPOS facilities and door handles, for example, are within reach for someone that is using a wheelchair, has a mobility issue, or someone of short stature. Ensure that lift buttons have raised tactile and braille information next to them so that the lifts provide audible information telling passengers whether they have gone up or down or whether the lift has arrived. Maintain adequate lighting levels throughout your premises. Provide clear and easy to read signage for people with impairment accessing and using your premises. Do not allow surfaces to become dangerously worn or slippery. Provide designated parking spaces for people with disabilities and maintain a continuous path of travel from the parking space to the premises. Transport. If your business provides transport options, please be aware of the following. Ensure information relevant to passengers with an impairment is provided on the Transport Services website. Important. Such information may include specific booking processes, requirements for passengers with an impairment, location of accessible bus and train stops, timing of accessible services, and access features. Make sure booking forms and mobile apps are accessible to people with an impairment. Provide training to frontline staff on the delivery of accessible transport to passengers with an impairment. Take steps to inform booking agents, travel agents, or tour guides of relevant considerations that they need to take for people with impairment or disability. For example, their fitness to travel, impairment and disability equipment that they need, the restrictions and the access features. Okay, so mobility devices. Under the Disability Discrimination Act, it may be against the law for an owner or manager of a shop, restaurant, club or other venue to refuse entry to someone who uses a scooter or wheelchair as an aid for impairment or disability. It may also be against the law to restrict the access of the person to only certain parts of the premises. So someone's come into your restaurant. You can't just say, oh no, you have to sit down here in the corner. That's not inclusive and that's not acceptable. So definitely something to be aware of. An example of this is small shops who restrict mobility due to large amount of stock, which is illegal. So instead you've got no room because you've got stock sitting on the floor, meaning that that person can't get through or that person can't come and enjoy your service. So that's illegal. Businesses should consider the needs of customers who use scooters or wheelchairs as mobility devices, and when they have too much stock on the floor. The general tip for maintaining an accessible premises mentioned in the earlier section of this resource also applies to people using mobility devices and of those customers that can't even get in the door. So if customers can't even get in the door because of stock on the floor or various other reasons, then they're not going to come in and spend money. So you've potentially lost those customers. Assistance animals. Be aware that a guide dog is not the only form of an assistance animal, and there are other assistance animals such as those that assist people with hearing disabilities and medical conditions. If you are unsure if an animal is an assistance animal or not, the law says it is okay to ask the person with the impairment to provide the evidence that the animal is an assistance animal and that it's been trained to meet the standards of hygiene and behaviour appropriate for an animal in a public place. So assistance animals come with a certificate. You could ask the person to please show the certificate so that they can then bring the dog into the restaurant, for instance. If you are unsure whether an assistance animal is an assistance animal, please ask the person before asking them to leave the premises or leave the animal outside. Provide frontline staff with this information and training about assistance animals. Okay, hopefully that's all making sense so far. Now we're going to look at increasing the accessibility of online content. The internet is by far the favoured way for customers to get information about goods and services. This research is often done prior to the customer physically visiting the storefront. So by making your information accessible, will encourage more customers to engage in your business. The following guidelines to keep in mind when designing your online content are: material that is presented only in image-based format, such as GIF or TIFF, will not be accessible to people with an impairment because screen readers cannot interpret them. Use plain fonts that are easy to read. Avoid fonts that are too decorative or stylized. Make sure that there's enough contrast between the foreground text and the background colours so that the text is easy to read. Do not provide content only in PDF format, as screen readers generally cannot read these. If you do include PDFs, provide the same information on Word or HTML. Make sure you include text descriptions for all non-text content, including images and graphs, for example, using the ALT text function. Avoid scanned pictures of writing or text, a photo of a menu or text boxes, as screen readers once again cannot read these. Provide captions or transcripts for multimedia, audio and video content. Do not set audio or video content to play automatically when the page is loaded. This can interfere with screen readers once again and is also very annoying. If you use Capture, then make sure that there are alternatives available because Capture can be, oh God, sometimes you can't even tell what it says. I mean, imagine someone with a vision impairment or another kind of impairment trying to read that, and someone without an impairment or disability, struggle with it. Imagine how much they'd struggle with it. Okay, make sure that all your content on your website can be navigated by the keyboard and doesn't just require a mouse. Make technical support available to your customers who need assistance using your website via online chat sessions, phone calls, or messaging. Test the accessibility of your website and, where necessary, speak to an accessibility professional. All this helps to meet the needs of customers which walk into your business, and helps you create more customers because you've got more information available to all different people. Okay, next let's look at planning events. We'll be covering accessible tourism and events, looking at the opportunities into greater detail in tomorrow, part 5, and then part 6 of the webinar series. These tips are looking specifically at the physical event. When planning events, including meetings, festivals, conferences, lectures, and fundraisers, you will need to take reasonable steps to ensure that the event is accessible so that people with an impairment or disability can attend and participate. Consideration should be given to the issues raised in each of the earlier sections of this workshop, in addition to the following information. Explain the accessibility of the venue on the invitation or registration form, and request attendees inform you of any accessibility requirements that they may have. An example of what you could include: access process, maps for people with an impairment of where the accessible toilets are, where the accessible parking is, the best spot maybe that they could go and sit to see properly, and explain it. So explain it on those maps. Make sure all handout materials are available in accessible electronic format as well. Additionally, the following considerations should also be considered when using a venue. Make sure that there is sufficient, simple and visible signage to direct people where to go. Ensure the venue is large enough and set out in such a way that people with impairment, including people using mobility devices and wheelchairs, can freely move around the event, especially when it's full. When setting up seating arrangements and allocations, allow people with an impairment or using a wheelchair to choose the seating, including options with a clear view and of the stage and speaker platforms. This is particularly important for people that are deaf or have a hearing impairment. Ensure that presenters are aware that if they are using PowerPoint slides or a video in their presentations, they need to also provide the same information in a format which is accessible for people who have vision or hearing impairments. For example, speakers could provide an oral description of PowerPoint slides, provide hard copy, electronic or audible copies of the material ahead of the event, and use captioning or Auslan interpreters during a presentation, which is becoming very, very popular nowadays on the news every day, especially at the moment. Auslan everywhere, and that's what we want to see. Brief the venue and registration staff about the responsibility to avoid discrimination against people with an impairment or disability, and about any access issues such as allowing people to use an assistance animal in the venue or service. Also brief staff of locations of the accessible toilets and other accessible features. Have handouts about the accessible features. This information could be provided to staff in writing or in a brief session meeting before the venue starts. The staff member, you could also choose a staff member that could be responsible for addressing any accessibility issues that arise on the day of the event, and make sure that all staff working at the event know who this person is. because a lot of people we have found by doing these workshops, they are in a wheelchair or they have mobility or an impairment, and they go to find out what they need to know. Where should I go? Where can I go to see properly? Where can I get in with my wheelchair? And the event staff don't really know. You need that one person that is going to be like an accessibility officer that coordinates all of the accessibility issues for people with impairment and disability. Because there's nothing worse, everyone not knowing, and then that person with a disability or impairment has missed out on half of the concert that they've paid for. It's not fair. Okay, so let's now look at universal design. So all of the tips to increase accessibility are great, but what is even better than a solution is if the problem didn't exist in the first place. Universal design is a great way to make your organisation amazingly accessible. It is cheaper, faster and visually more appealing than fixing it later. So what is universal design? Universal design is the design and composition of an environment so that it can be assessed, understood and used to the greatest extent possible by all people regardless of their age, size, ability or impairment. In short, it is when society designs a product or service building with everyone in mind. Staff at all levels can contribute to the universal design, from small changes on a single product or service designing on a holistic experience for everyone. Business case for universal design. When done right, universal design is more than just catering for customers with impairments. It can have the following business benefits. Increased market reach. A universally designed product will be usable, accessible and appealing to a wider customer base. Enhanced customer satisfaction and retention. A satisfied customer will tell other people about a product, service or environment, increasing your awareness and potentially creating your new customers for your business or service. Market crossover success. Products that are aimed at specific target groups can sometimes generate interest and demand from unforeseen markets. The OXO Good Grips range, which are kitchen products, are products especially designed for older people with arthritis or someone with limited hand movements. This kind of out-of-the-box thinking can generate widespread demand. I actually have one of these OXO Good Grips can openers. I didn't even know that that was for people with arthritis or limited hand mobility. I just liked the look of it. It's big and chunky. It does not look like it's going to break anytime soon because I really hate can openers. This can opener is the best, easy to use, easy to hold on to. My kids could use it. So it just shows when you have thought outside the box, it's not something you see everywhere, but as soon as you see these products, you're thinking, oh my God, and you use them. That's so easy to use. Why don't we just make these in general for everyone? And that's what universal design is all about as well. Okay, so it can also create a positive public image. A business that positively contributes to society by incorporating the universal design approach is likely to receive a reputation for having a high level of corporate social responsibility. Next, increased consumer expectations. In recent decades, the voice of the general public has become more prominent and more influential. Universal design enables companies to design products, services and environments that are more closely matched with consumers' needs and expectations. Accept at first. A consumer forms an opinion about a product at first use, or even at first sight. A recent study suggested that internet users take less than 50 milliseconds, that's a 20th of a second, to judge the visual appearance of a website. If the first impression is negative, a consumer will most likely not go into your website further and not purchase your product. If your product is simple, clear, easy to access and easy to use, a customer will be more likely to proceed with the transaction and use your business or service. Okay, let's go to achieving universal design. The most efficient way to achieve universal design is collaborating with employees that have a disability or impairment. They can guide the process with their experience. There are also 7 principal topics to note when striving for universal design. These are equitable use, flexibility in use, simple and intuitive use, perceptible information, tolerance for error, and low physical effort. Let's just go through these. Okay. And size and space for appropriate approach and use. Let's go through these. Equitable use. The design should be useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities. The guidelines are: provide the same means of use for all users, identical wherever possible, and equivalent when not. So this is ramps instead of stairs is identical. Ramp and stairs is equivalent. Avoid segregating or stigmatizing any users, like having a wheelchair access through the kitchen only, which is so degrading. Gone out for a lovely nice dinner with your wife, but hang on, you have to go in the back door where it's all messy and not a very nice environment to have to go through, and then out the front there's this amazing restaurant where everyone else is welcome to go through. Make it accessible so that those people in wheelchairs can also come through your front door. Provisions for privacy, security and safety should be equal to all users. Make the design appealing to all users. So important information once again to remember. See here, there's a picture of stairs and a ramp, so that is identical. Equitable use, that's identical, not just got stairs. Okay, flexibility in use. The design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities, so you need to ensure that your design accommodates these. And an example of this to accommodate these would be the use of flashing lights with sirens or beeping sounds to give warnings in an emergency situation. This way, people with reduced hearing and sight can know what to do, which could save lives. So if you've only got a siren, nothing else, then people with a hearing impairment aren't going to know that there's an emergency, or vice versa. If you've only got the lights and not the sound, then people with a vision impairment aren't going to see that there's an emergency. You need to have all the bases covered, especially in an emergency. So the guidelines for these are: provide choice in methods of use, accommodate right and left-handed accessible and use, facilitate the user's accuracy and precision, provide adaptability to the user's pace. So adaptability to the user's pace. If you've got someone with a mobility issue and you're a staff member and there's an emergency, you need to slow down and help that person with the mobility issues. Don't make them try to run any faster. Don't make them try to walk any faster. You need to adapt to their pace to get them out of there. Okay. Simple and intuitive use. The use of design is easy. Make sure the use of design is easy to understand regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration level. For example, the universal design of the female and male symbols on a bathroom, easy to understand than stylized script. And every person, no matter their age, where they're from, nationality, We all know, every single person around the world knows what these symbols mean. And that's what we're trying to create, so that all of our symbols and use of language is all recognizable to most people, with hearing impairments, disabilities, people from different countries, people with different ages. Children know what the man and the female symbols are. Okay, so guidelines for these. Eliminate unnecessary complexity. So there's no need to have just this jumbled up, complex, beautiful writing on your doors. Okay, it may look really nice and you're happy with how it looks, but can everyone understand it? Be consistent with your users' expectations and intuition. Accommodate a wide range of literacy and language skills. Arrange information consistent with its importance. Provide effective prompting and feedback during and after a task is complete. Okay, so that's simple and intuitive use. Next, we looked at perceptible information. The design communicates necessary information effectively to the user, regardless of the ambient conditions of the user's sensory abilities. This is an example. Raised tactile indicators. Not only warn people with vision impairments, but also alert people of an up-and-coming hazard. So who here thought that those beautiful little bumps on the sidewalk or the pathways were art or decorative? I did, until I started with men. These bumps and lines are to alert people with hearing, vision, and impairments that they're coming up to a road, they're coming up to a train stop, they're coming up to traffic lights. So it stops them from walking onto the road. So now that you've seen what they actually are, you'll notice them everywhere. Okay, the guidelines for this information. Use different modes, pictorial, verbal, and tactile, for a redundant presentation of essential information. So those the tactile indicators are redundant presentation of essential information. This information on the sidewalk, these bumps, are very important and essential for people that are blind. Maximize essential information. Provide adequate contrast between essential information and its surroundings. Maximize essential information. Make it easy to give instructions or directions. Provide compatibility with a variety of techniques or devices used by people with sensory limitations. Okay, tolerance for error. The design minimises hazards and adverse consequences of accidental, unintended actions. An example: guards and handrails on ramps provide a tolerance for error when using a ramp. Guidelines. Arrange elements to minimise hazards and errors. Most used elements. Most accessible hazardous elements are limited, isolated, or shielded. Provide warnings of hazards and errors. Provide fail-safe features. Discourage unconscious actions in the task that require vigilance. So you've got a ramp there. You've not just got a ramp. If someone falls or trips, they've then got the handrails to stop them from falling and hurting themselves more. They're not going to fall over the edge. There's glass there dividing it from falling down. You need to make sure that you've got all of these things in place, especially for people with a disability or impairment, or older people. Okay, low physical effort. The design can be used effectively and comfortably make sure that the design can be used efficiently and comfortably with a minimum of fatigue. Example: installing a lever door handle means that it can be opened using an elbow or a closed fist, benefiting people with limited hand movement, benefiting people carrying shopping bags, benefiting people carrying hot coffees. This Lever door handle is a great example of universal design. This accommodates every single human being. A round door handle, on the other hand, does not. Someone with limited mobility can't turn the door handle. Okay, let's go on to the guidelines. Allow the user to maintain a neutral body position. So if someone in a wheelchair can't really move to the side or turn their whole body, you have to make sure that your door or your service is easy to get into without someone hurting themselves. So just simple things that you need to have. Don't make it complicated to get into the shop, because they won't come in or can't come in. Use reasonable operating forces. Minimize repetitive actions. Minimize sustained physical effort. So that's all with what I've just spoken about. If you make it easy for the person to get in, if you've got a round door handle, that person could be trying for half an hour to turn the door handle and they can't get in. That's maximizing the physical effort. You've got to minimize it. Okay, next up is size and space for approach and use. Appropriate size and space is provided for an approach, reach, manipulation and use regardless of the user's body size, posture or mobility. An example, accessibility parking spaces are designed with a shared area and placed closer to the building entrances to allow people with mobility issues and devices to access the building. Guidelines. Provide a clear line of sight to important elements for seated and standing users. Make components reachable and comfortable for any seated or standing user. Accommodate various hand grip sizes. Provide appropriate space for the use of assistive devices or personal assistants. So in some cases someone might have a carer with them. You need to make sure there's room for that personal assistance. Okay, why diverse marketing? First up, let me explain diverse marketing and what it is. 50 years ago, a company could be successful in marketing when using the WASPs, White Anglo-Saxon Protestants, since they represented most of the consumer market. Eventually, some companies realised that the business potential of marketing worked with populations as well, and several efforts at multicultural marketing were attempted, but a company could still experience success without it. Today, however, the marketing is decidedly different. The Australian population has grown increasingly diverse, and if trends continue, today's minority groups will make up the majority of population sometime around 2040. This general market strategy may already no longer be effective in some contexts, requiring organisations to diversify their marketing strategies. Consumers in different cultures have different values, experiences and expectations, and ways of interacting. Even within a culture, such differences will be apparent between different subgroups, not just ethnically, but also age, gender, profession, religion, family size, physical environment, and more. Diversity marketing involves acknowledging that marketing and advertising must offer alternative ways of communication to other diverse groups. With that knowledge, diversity marketers aim to develop a mix of different communication methods in order to reach people in each of the diverse market groups that they present. Okay, so first up we have essential. Essential marketing is the process of how a business, product or service promotes its key features and how it benefits its customers, which ultimately generates sales for the business by satisfying its customers' needs. Powerful. On average, we're exposed to around 5,000 ads per day, ranging from TV all the way to print down to branding and sponsorship. Advertising is everywhere, and continues to be a powerful medium for persuasion and changing attitudes. Connection. By representing people with impairment in advertising, companies can connect more strongly with customers with an impairment as well as their family and friends. It also demonstrates support for human diversity in a broader sense. Let's have a look at these diverse marketing ideas. They are inclusive marketing, thematic marketing, and pride marketing. Okay, we're nearly to the end. What's the time? 10 to 12. Right, inclusive marketing. Let's have a look at this. This method does not emphasize disability. Rather, it neutralizes it by incorporating people with a disability in images or messages. These people are just like any other customer enjoying your product who just happens to have a disability or an impairment. Right, here's a little video for you to see exactly this.
So how was the big wedding?
Oh, haven't you heard? So it's at the end of the night, everyone's on the dance floor really getting into it, you know?
Yeah, you are.
And say, this is my left wheel, and this is the bride's foot.
Yeah.
Bush.
How awful.
Well, wasn't all bad. I left with the best man's number.
You are terrible.
Guilty.
I'm not inviting you to my wedding. No. That's it, you're off the list.
So that's exactly what we need to do. You know, we're just like people with disability or impairment are just like anyone else, no different. Okay, this is a brilliant example of inclusive marketing. This method presents little risk of criticism for disability opportunism, has broader economic and social potential, and is more easily incorporated into sustained commitment marketing strategies, often as an extension of existing diversity initiatives in marketing. Large businesses such as Kmart, Target, Mars Chocolate have made use of this method, with results shown in the next session. Okay, next is thematic marketing. In a nutshell, thematic advertising focuses on disability itself, usually conveying an explicit message or comment about disability. Thematic advertising can be done well and may be helpful in showcasing products or services specific to disability. So here's a great example.
I can boost your profits.
I can deliver fantastic service.
I can maintain your garden.
I can maintain your fleet.
I can manage your finances.
I can be a loyal and productive employee.
But I can't put my abilities to work
if I'm not given the opportunity.
If you don't recognise my abilities.
If you don't have an open mind.
If you don't employ me.
So what can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do?
You can remember that.
Savvy employers.
No, it's what people can do that matters.
It's what people can do that grows Australian business.
The 4 million Australians with barriers and disabilities
Have many more amazing abilities.
That should be used.
Because it's good for business.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Because every Australian deserves a fair go.
Start right now.
Call Forest Personnel on 1800.
So, many companies are reluctant to consider thematic advertising about disability, fearing that they will get it wrong or say the wrong thing and cause offence. But as long as you are using the right people, then it's not going to cause offence, and we'll go over that very, very soon. Okay, pride marketing. Most businesses have various disability-related policies and procedures in place. Things like accepting their companion card or offering additional help for people that cannot fill out forms, and much more. These are amazing initiatives and would sway a potential customer with a disability to use your business. The problem is no one knows about it. By showing pride in your measures, celebrating any changes, and acknowledging shortcomings, you are demonstrating awareness of the issues. This newspaper clipping shows the success that they now have access to the beach. for people that are using a wheelchair. So they've celebrated their successes, they've advertised their successes. So if you've made a little change in your business and your business is now way more accessible or inclusive than it was before, then promote it, use it. So has an accessible issue come to mind? Maybe social media, maybe use social media to acknowledge it and keep people up to date with your progress. Okay. Last one. Diverse marketing pitfalls. Ads involving people with impairment should always be created in consultation with people with impairment. So if you're doing thematic marketing, you need to use people with impairment. This will ensure that the messages are consistent with the intent. Use people with actual impairments, not actors pretending to have an impairment or a disability, because you may not be able to tell the difference, but the targeted audience can, and this will do more harm than good. Don't use them as well in an inspiring context. They are just normal people wanting to use your business or service. They don't want to be made to feel like they're different or inspiring. They're just normal people coming into your business wanting to use your business or product. And that is why when you do all of your marketing and your advertising and you want to include people with disability and impairment, you need to use people with disability and impairment. Because as you can see on this picture, you can see this girl clearly does not look like she has an impairment. And that is definitely more obvious to people that actually are in wheelchairs. Anyway, that is it for today. That was a long session and a lot of information to take in. If you did need to go back, once I've hit the end button, you can rewind it and watch any information that you missed out on. Or you can head over to the website, www.30footdrop.com.au, not /live, .com.au, to look at any resources and look into any more information. Right now I am going to turn the video off so that people can have time to write some questions in if they have any. But if you do have to go, that is fine. Some of you might be getting a little bit hungry. It's 12 o'clock over this side. Thanks for joining me, those that have to leave. Take care of each other, take care of your neighbours, take care of your elderly people around you. And if you know anyone that is isolating alone, please get in touch with them and let them know that you're there for them, even if it's over the phone or video call. These people need to know that we are there, because a lot of people are feeling so depressed and overwhelmed at the moment, especially people with impairment and disability, because they are much more limited to staying at home. But I did see or hear on the radio that people with impairment and disability will be sent a code so that they can get an online shop, so you don't have to go to the shops, which would be amazing, and that needed to be done. Anyway, I'm going to pause for a few minutes while people send in some questions, but if you do have to go, I will hopefully see you guys tomorrow to look at tourism and events in webinar part 5. Right, I will be back in 5 minutes. Welcome back. So there doesn't appear to be any questions this morning, which is totally fine. I hope you all enjoyed today. If you need to go back, you can rewind it once I've hit the end button. I will be doing this one again tonight, so if you know anyone that could benefit from this webinar, please send them along tonight. It's at 6 o'clock WA time. And also, if you missed anything or you want to watch it again, feel free to come and watch it again. Anyway, take care of each other, and I will see whoever tonight. Thanks very much for joining me. Bye.